Hi there, and welcome back to Life with Casey. We're right in the middle of my brand new series on how to learn a language. Today is part 2, and the method that we're going to be focusing on today is language learning software programs such as Rosetta Stone and Babbel. So let's jump on right in. I know of a lot of people who are thinking of different ways to learn a language, and they've heard really good things about language learning software programs such as Rosetta Stone. Let's take a look at a little bit of what Rosetta Stone claims for their customers. Rosetta Stone promises to be the fastest way to learn a language. It promises to present info for optimal impact and performance. It says it will give you a true accent and improves your pronunciation. It says that it offers native tutors that will engage in skill-building conversations. And lastly, it says that it offers audio lessons and phrase books for useful expressions. That's quite a bit to claim from a learning language software, that it is the fastest way to learning a language. Now, a couple of my friends have actually invested in Rosetta Stone or a similar software program. They decided they wanted to learn a language, and they were willing to spend $300, $350, $400 on Rosetta Stone Portuguese, let's say. Now, they have not been successful in learning a language through Rosetta Stone. They didn't reach fluency. After a couple of lessons, they got disinterested. They stopped practicing. They didn't feel like it was really going to be the best way for them to learn a language. Now, I'm not saying that Rosetta Stone or an equal type of program isn't a good option. I myself have never used it in my language acquisition process, but what I want to do today is review both the positives and the negatives. I've done some pretty in-depth research, both speaking with people who have used the program and then also just research on the internet. So if you're thinking of purchasing Rosetta Stone, and it is an investment. It could be as cheap as $150. It could be as expensive as $500 to purchase the software. So what I want to do today is to really give you my opinion and a full review of the product so that you can be knowledgeable before you make this purchase, and you can decide with the evidence whether you think this is going to be a good avenue for you to pursue language acquisition. So let's get started. So, as I said, I looked at a few different software programs, the two most common being Babbel and Rosetta Stone. Depending on the language that you want to learn and the levels that are included in the software, you could spend as little as $150. That would be, let's say, basic Spanish. It has 3 different levels, and after you finish these levels, Rosetta Stone claims that you're at the intermediate level of Spanish. So that would be $150. There are also programs such as Mandarin that give you 6 levels for $350. And these 6 levels are supposed to get you to an intermediate level in Mandarin, since it is a harder language to learn. Then it could be as expensive as $500 for a larger compilation of lessons, and it claims to get you to an advanced level of fluency after these lessons. So one of the major claims of Rosetta Stone, or one of the similar types of language learning software programs, is that it tries to recreate total immersion. Now, first of all, if you've never learned a language before, you might be asking yourself, well, what's so important about recreating immersion? How can I pretend to be totally immersed when I'm sitting at my computer, not anywhere near the country or the people who speak this language? Well, it is very important that you try and recreate immersion when you're learning a language. I go back to the example of a small child that's just learning their first language. They need to have total immersion to be able to pick up language. We as human beings learn by seeing, by repeating, by doing. And so if you're in a class or if you're on a program where they're giving you some of the foreign language and some English, your brain is not conditioned to think and to really give the effort to reach the level of fluency in that language. You're almost training your brain to be lazy. Your brain thinks that when it's in language mode, it can always go back to English. It doesn't need to be 100% in the other language. If you don't know a word, you don't need to try so hard to think of it or to explain it. You can always fall back on English. So the best way and the quickest way to learn a language really is total immersion. So while I have never purchased Rosetta Stone or a language learning program, if it does claim to recreate total immersion, as in it doesn't give you any English, it's forcing the foreign language on you in all the exercises and learning videos, that is a really positive aspect. Another positive that I found about Rosetta Stone is that it gives you simple concepts, which is important at the beginning. It will teach you the basics. It will teach you basic verb conjugation, basic sentence structure, basic tenses, past, present, future. And that's really crucial. As I said in my last video, that base knowledge of a language is fundamental for eventually reaching fluency. If you don't have a solid base knowledge of that language, you're not going to be able to get to the more complicated verb tenses, the more complicated sentence structures. So if it does actually teach the simple basic concepts of a language, I do think that that's a really positive feature. Another benefit of these language learning softwares such as Rosetta Stone is that it's on your schedule. You don't have to dedicate a night every single week for 6 months to a class, like if you were to go to a university. It really is flexible on your schedule. That being said, that could also be a disadvantage because we know as humans we get distracted. There's the TV, there's movies, there's our cell phones, there's Facebook, there's so many distractions. And so if it's on you to be accountable for your own language learning, sometimes that might not be the best and you might not get the results that you want because you're not as accountable to yourself as you are to a professor in a class and a university setting. So with that being said, I'm now going to go over the negative aspects that I've found from both people that I've talked to that have purchased these softwares and the review that I did on the internet. So the first thing that I found is a negative aspect of Rosetta Stone or another type of software is that it doesn't prepare you for speaking. I've found that it's very good at prepping you for vocabulary. It's very good at going over your accent, how to pronounce words. It's very good at teaching you basic sentence structure, basic verb conjugation, but it doesn't actually prepare you to speak. And let me tell you, as a language learner, you could be in middle school and high school learning Spanish for 7 years, go travel abroad, and you cannot utter the words that are in your head. It just doesn't come out fluently. So communication and speaking is one really important aspect of language acquisition, and I feel that a lot of times in some courses such as Rosetta Stone, it doesn't get the importance that it deserves. Head knowledge is really, really great, but if you can't reiterate that knowledge and communicate it to other people, it's really not going to help you in your language acquisition journey. The next negative that I'm going to talk about that I found about Rosetta Stone or other language learning programs is that it focuses more on the fun aspect or the entertainment aspect of learning a language than the core competencies that you need in language acquisition. I don't know if you've ever seen some of these language software programs, but it tends to be more about the games and the fun exercises that draw you in and make you want to come back, but don't actually have that much content and aren't actually that beneficial for your language learning. I think the fun aspect in language acquisition is important. You want to enjoy learning a language. You want to be able to learn about humor in that language. You want to be able to use your knowledge that you know in activities such as games or conversations. But if the fun is the main focus of your language learning acquisition, I don't think you're going to get that far. A lot of the learning in these programs is impractical vocab. It might be fun words or funny words that you are interested to know what it is. But if you go to the country where they speak that language, you're never going to use those words. And so honestly, it really doesn't help you, even though it might be fun and draw you in for a little while. The last negative that I found about language learning software programs is that it seems that people very quickly reach the learning cap, especially if you buy the cheaper version, which is about $150. It seems like after about a month or so, you reach that cap, and it says that you are at an intermediate level, but it seems like you don't actually know very much. This might be due to the fact that a lot of the learning, as I just said, is games and exercises developed for fun and not for actual learning. But it seems like for the people that actually want to gain a high level of fluency, reach a cap that they can't get past. They learn up to a certain level, but it's not designed to go further than that. It doesn't teach you the very complex grammatical structures, the complex verb conjugations. And so you spend all this money and you're stuck. You can't get past a certain level, if that makes sense. So in review, I think that there are some positives to language learning programs such as Rosetta Stone. Those positives are that it teaches you simple concepts and contributes to a fundamental base knowledge of that language. It tries to recreate immersion so you get the full language experience instead of half English, half whatever the language is. It also is great for people that are on a very tight schedule and just have 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there to devote to learning a language. And it also could potentially be cheaper than a university course, depending on which program you go with and which university course you would pick. So that could be a good alternative. On the other hand, I cannot guarantee that the quality of learning and the concepts and the content in these language learning programs are going to be as good as you would get if you went to a university course or some of the other methods that we're going to talk about in the next two videos. Additionally, if you buy this software, just know that you're going to get to a level where you can't continue. You're going to reach a cap. It may be that what you learn before you hit that cap is really valuable information. It might be that it's not so valuable, and when you reach that cap, you're frustrated that you can't go any further. And additionally, you might not be getting as valid or as crucial of information that you need to build upon to gain fluency. So with that, I'm going to conclude today's video, part 2 of my series. Like I said, in the next video, we're going to talk about study abroads and immersion programs. And in the last video, we're going to talk about self-initiated programs for learning language. I hope you liked it. Leave your suggestions, subscribe to my channel, check out my Instagram, and we'll see you soon.